Hello and welcome to On the Couch with Claire. I'm Clare Rowe. I'm a practicing psychologist, a forensic expert, a mother, a writer, amongst many other hats I wear. And I'm here having conversations about topics that you care about and that may just lead to living a better life. And let me tell you, today is no exception. As a psychologist, I have always been interested in the individual attribute of confidence. Why do some people just seem to be able to do things that leave the rest of us shaking in the corner, breathing into a paper bag? Are they just born like that? Or can confidence be learnt? Are these confident people out there just a little delusional about their own abilities? Or do they really have mastered some skills in an area and are pretty bang on with what they can do? So either way, I think it seems to be working for them, and the rest of us sometimes watch from the sidelines wanting to have what they're having. So to try and help me answer all these questions, I have a guest on the show today that seems to ooze confidence from her pores, literally. Heidi Anderson comes from a successful career in breakfast radio. She is now a PR and confidence coach, podcaster, and she's the author of the book Drunk on Confidence. And if you need any more convincing, yes, this is the woman who proudly appeared on daytime TV in her bra and undies. I can assure you that she is fully clothed in front of me right now, for now. Heidi Anderson, welcome to On the Couch with Claire.
Hello. If I knew that I could have taken my clothes off, I would have started like that.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Oh, I feel bad. I forgot to bring you a book. I literally had one in my hotel room. So you're coming tomorrow night to the shit show? I've got a book for you.
I will absolutely grab that off you, and I will get you to sign it.
Yes,
in your bra.
In my bra. And who knows, you might be in your bra tomorrow night.
I will not be in my bra. Thank you, Heidi. And that leads me on to kind of a question about, do we need to get in our bra to be confident? I'm not sure, but let me start.
Good question. My mum asks me that all the time.
Yeah. So people might have seen that. So you have, pioneered and really, your mission is to just bring people together, particularly women, let's say, in really not giving a hoot about what anyone else thinks. And your interpretation of that, let's say, is who cares about what we look like? This is us, this is our bodies. I'm going to strip down to my bra and undies and walk on a morning show, was it?
And through like Burke Street Mall in Melbourne, through Perth shopping centres, through Perth markets with hundreds of other people in their bra and undies on SBS.
Yeah, so people did this with you. That wasn't just you. People actually jumped on this bandwagon.
My mum's like, you can get people to do anything. She's like, you should have been a church leader or something like that.
Put into good use. So what does confidence mean to you, and what in your mind makes a confident person?
I loved just even listening to your introduction, because I think I've been trying to find confidence for years, right? But I think through walking through shopping centres and stripping down into my bra and undies, I just keep unleashing confidence. So confidence is a feeling. Like that's what it is for me, and I think about that, what you said at the start, where it's like, are we born with it, or can you unlock it? Can you learn it? And I kind of sit with this a lot, because I look at my son, he's 4.5, and I think how confident he is. And I know that he's getting that confidence from me. It's a feeling, it's an energy, it's action. It's, I can see that he's getting that from me, but he also doesn't know that he is this confident little boy who's wearing like pink all the time, and he's not really giving a shit what people think either. And I think back to when I was little and I was like, that was me too. That was me as well. And then along the way, I got lost.
Something happened. So when I work with kids as a psychologist, and that's my main area, it's funny. If you ask a little child in my office, what are you good at doing? Their response is, everything. Like I can kick a ball the furthest, and I can run the fastest, and I'm the best at this, and I'm, like a 4-year-old. Yeah. And you're like, that's so endearing. Like that's the best, right? And then somewhere along the line, something happens. And by the time I ask that child at 11 or 12, what are you good at? The answer is the complete opposite. Nothing. Yeah. And then I go, come on, must be something. No, I'm not good at anything. And so it's really interesting, because it's only a couple of years difference. And I see it routinely. Something happens whereby we are not inhibited to be able to say, yeah, I'm great.
Yeah.
And then somehow we get this message from society that that's not cool to say that.
Yes. This is the issue. So, and I think through my experience, and we'll get to talking why I walk through shopping centres in my bra and undies and stuff, but I love that you talk about this, because this is something through my own self-discovery that I've been like, why did this happen? And when I wrote my book, I talk about all the mean girls in my mind and discovering those. And I think they came from society's expectations. They came from magazines. It came from TV shows. It came from people's opinions, thoughts. I hear people talk today and I'm like, shit, no wonder we've got issues. No wonder we question ourselves. No wonder we don't have confidence. We have imposter syndrome when you hear the words that come out of people's mouths. And so I was like, I was this confident kid. I was a little show pony. I loved life. Mum said I always had the kindest heart. I was always the one who walked into the room with the big energy, and I was happy just to be here.
Which is what we see now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
But I got lost along the way, years of like, even though I was putting myself out there like a confident person when I was working in breakfast radio, when I first started working in breakfast radio, I wasn't. I was a shell, it was all like hard exterior, fake confidence, and I was dying inside. And so when I've kind of like really assessed myself, as I do, I'm like one of those real deep thinkers and, gone through lots of inner work, I think I got lost along the way in my teenage years, and it was, words of other people, magazines, all that kind of stuff. And then it's probably only been into my early 30s when I came out and spoke about my mental health issues quite publicly. And I was working a breakfast radio job. I'd come out of Big Brother. That then I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually not confident. Like it's all been, I felt like maybe a lie, like that I wanted to be that person, and I was once upon a time, and alcohol fueled that as well, and boys and all this, crazy Saturday nights that I used to have. I did have that confidence, and I felt that other Heidi, and I remember saying I went and saw this guy once, and it was the very start of my spiritual journey. And he was like, well, who are you? And I was like, I don't know, but I fucking love the girl who's drunk because she is so confident. And I don't know who she is anymore, but she comes out every Saturday night and, maybe sometimes on a Friday night, and when I was living in London, Sunday night too. And I said, but I don't know how to get to her.
But she's probably the girl that everyone else loves too, right?
Yeah,
like she's the life of the party girl.
Life of the party. But then, I was like the depressed, stressed, anxious in the week, like dieting, all that kind of crazy stuff. And that was probably the start that I realized like, well, I want to find that girl again, but I don't have to drink to find her. And don't get me wrong, I still have a wine every now and then and love my sparkles and all that kind of stuff. But I did go on a big journey of trying to rediscover myself. And I feel like through walking through shopping centres in my bra and undies, and, it's not just that. I actually started with just getting my arms out in public, because for years I wouldn't even get my arms out in public.
Oh my gosh, so many of my friends are like that.
Yeah,
they won't show their arms.
I was a cardigan girl all summer, and I had so much hate towards myself. And so it started with that. And then, 10 years later, I started walking through shopping centres. So it wasn't like an overnight thing, and it's not for everyone. And, it might not work for you, but you would know exposure therapy and exposure activity. That's like literally what it is. So I expose myself to things that scare the shit out of me.
So you say at some point, I mean, it all kind of unraveled a bit, you reckon, in teenage years? Or maybe just before teenage years.
Yeah,
I mean, so
I would say like the end of primary. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
So it all kind of unraveled a bit. And then you came to this revelation that actually this persona that I'm putting forward, you came to people's attention in Big Brother and then breakfast radio, is not actually, it's a bit of a mask. It's not actually how I'm feeling inside. But I want to ask, but the difference is you said yes to Big Brother and yes to opportunities like breakfast radio. I know. Whereas a lot of non-confident people would just not even put themselves out there. So what was it about you?
I'm mad. I'm mad.
That's what I'm interested in. Your madness, but I'm interested in what made you, despite not being confident, saying yes to putting yourself in front of, thousands of people?
Yeah. God, I love this conversation. I just love therapy, by the way. So I love that I'm sitting here with you. Like I love all this kind of stuff. But I reckon this has probably only just kind of landed for me in the last year or so. Again, more just self-discovery, learning a little bit about ADHD and validation and, the way that I felt like rejected for such a long time. And I think what it was is that I was searching for this validation. And so what kind of validation, you think about like the audiences that we had access to. Yeah, there was people that didn't like me, but the majority of people in breakfast radio, I was well loved, and so I think that I didn't realize at the time, but I had this desire to be big and out there, like from when I was a little girl. And then I lost that along the way. And then when I hit my 20s, I was like, no, I'm going to go for this. Like, that's what I really want to do. Now looking back, I think it was all a big validation thing. Like I was constantly being validated. I also had these other crazy demons come up of like the people that didn't like me or the bosses if you weren't doing, but that's what I feel like it is. I was truly being seen. You know what I mean?
So
I was desperate to be seen.
So you were getting a lot of, as you said, validation, but, love, positive reinforcement.
Yes.
You're great, you're so funny.
Which
and that was
that
filling.
Yes.
filling the gap that you were not feeling yourself.
Yep. And then when I left breakfast radio and had my little boy, as you would know, you lose completely, your identity just shifts. Yep. And then also leaving breakfast radio was like that whole persona gone. And so I realized there was a massive, massive void, and I hired this incredible woman called Dom, and she's been my coach for the last couple of years, and we've worked really closely together. And I was just constantly feeding that overachiever's mindset, filling that void of like searching for that validation, to desperate to be seen. And that obviously all goes back to inner child stuff, right? Like from when I was little, that carried on through all those years. And, I don't regret my career. Like I had a great time doing breakfast radio. I had a great time in Big Brother, but I wish that I knew what I know now.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? To maybe protect myself a little bit more. Maybe the anxiety wouldn't have lasted 3 years after Big Brother. Might have only been a short little bit of anxiety, but then would I have been as, the person
you are now? No.
And like as if they put like a person who's done the work on reality TV. Like
no, we don't want those people at all.
They're not entertaining.
No. So this idea of, because I, as a psychologist, I have people and certainly teenagers come to me, and invariably they're after two things. They want to either feel confident and they don't, or feel motivated and they don't. And I find it funny because there's these two kind of almost abstract concepts where I kind of joke and say, well, okay, I'll just grab a jar of that and give it to you. Like if it was that simple, hey, here's some motivation, here's some confidence. Like it's a thing that you can come and get. And so I'm often talking to clients about, the bad news is that you're going to need to do things despite feeling unmotivated, despite not feeling confident. And they don't have to be massive things. No. Like, as you said, you can start small, but you're going to have to do it just out of sheer willpower or just, blind faith and just do it. And then the confidence will come after that, like a little trickle.
Yes.
And then build from there. So the confidence comes out of the action and the behavior rather than, well, I'll just keep attending therapy, or I'll just keep waiting for the day that someone
saves me,
knocks on my door and says, hey, here's confidence for you.
Yeah, exactly. We're all looking for the magic pill. And I think, well, for me, it's like stepping into courage first, right? Like that's how I always think of it. Courage comes before confidence. And for me, it was like the courage that I took on radio that day to speak about my mental health. And then I built that confidence over time by stepping out and doing keynotes and talking about it and having conversations. And that's how I built my confidence in sharing about my mental health. And it's the same thing. I kind of see it like I love the 1%, like, James Clear, Atomic Habits, like 1% gets you closer to, so I always think of it like if I do 1% a day, that's 365% that I've made like some kind of change in 1 year. And that's how I kind of talk about it with a lot of people now, because for me, that's what it was. It was like those 1%, one step in front of the other. And over time, over 10 years, I became and unlocked that confidence that I had when I was a little kid. Like it wasn't easy.
But through taking action.
And so I always say like action equals confidence. And then you think about, you go to the gym. Like I go to the gym every day to feel strong. Probably not every day, like 3 days a week. Let's be real. I don't do 7 days a week. That was when I was obsessed with dieting. But 3 days a week. But I'm like, so you go to the gym to build those muscles for reps. It's the same with confidence. So if you can do something to build your confidence every single day, like what is that for you? Like if you're not struggling to show up on social media, like a lot of business women I work with, struggling to show up on social media without getting their hair and makeup done, or like, what if I say, what if I do this? I'm like, I say all the time, and I rock up with no pants on social media. But the only way I got good at that and confident at that is because I did it. And then and so I fully believe that. And that's what I teach my son now. And I just, I love watching his confidence, and I know that because I'm oozing that confidence, and, he sees that. He doesn't hear me talk about myself or other people in a negative light. He just sees this, fun and vibrant. He obviously sees the devil as well, like that comes out of me. But like I can see that within him. And every morning I say to him when he's putting on his clothes, I say, how does it feel? And he's like, I feel happy. And I said, and what else? And he's like, confident. And that for me is just like that programming from that little, that young age, that it's a feeling, and like for so long I didn't have that feeling. And so
that's really scary for people though, isn't it? When you say, well, and I agree, and this is what I tell clients, is that it comes through action, and sorry, no other way around it. You just got to take the leap.
Yeah.
And, stepping into courage, it's like, what does that mean? Well, sometimes it just means making the decision and not thinking about it again.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, do it.
Yeah.
Act.
Yeah.
And that's scary for people. It's really frightening for people. And so I'm wondering whether you had a vision of who you wanted to be or who you wanted to get back to. Was it like that childhood Heidi, or did you have someone you were admiring? Because I get clients to very much form a very strong picture of the type of person they want to be. And it might be someone else that they admire, but it might just be, what's the version of Claire, the version of Heidi that you want to be? And then get them to ask, what would that version do? What would they do? What would future Claire do in that scenario? And then it's really clear what they should do.
Yeah. I think like when I first started, I didn't do that. You know what I mean? I just kept putting one foot in front of the other and pushing myself, because I felt like a crazy person. Like, how can I be putting myself out there for like Big Brother, radio, breakfast radio 5 days a week, and I'm questioning myself every day. I felt like a crazy psychopath, like banging my head against the wall every single day. So I just kept going in that way. And then I started writing about it, and I became a columnist for Perth Now and news.com. And it was that I realized, like, I'm actually speaking to myself here. I'm actually not speaking to anyone else. So I didn't have this vision then, but I just kept taking steps. The vision for me came after I walked through the shopping centre in my bra and undies. And that was when my son was a year old, and it was 2020, and I had been doing all of the work, one foot in front of the other, to get into a bathing suit for the girl who was in the cardigan. And then so I'd got into the bathing suit. I was getting photos down the beach. I was in my bikini, and I was like, well, that's so comfortable for me now. Like, what's my next thing? And I was like, what would scare the shit out of me? Walking through a shopping centre in my bra and undies. And so then, I don't know, it just kind of happened, and I had contacts, and they were like, yeah, let's film it. Well, we're just going to get photos. And then someone was like, we'll film it. It ended up going viral. Then SBS called us, and then it became like a thing for TV and on documentaries and all this stuff. And from there, that's who I envision. I envision the girl who's confident enough to walk through a shopping centre in her bra and undies. Like, when I'm doubting myself, when I'm not feeling myself, like, I'm still scared about running my shit show tomorrow night, like doing empowerment stand-up. But I think about that girl who walks through the shopping centre in her bra and undies, and that's who I envision every day. And also the women who were courageous enough to do that with me, who hadn't done the work that I had done, but believed in me and wanted to support me. There was 7 of them the very first walk. Half of those girls were like, hadn't even been photographed in a bikini at the beach, but they were like, if you believe in us Hides, we believe in you, we will rock it with you. And that was like this, courage, and like, as my mum said, that leader Heidi, you just get people to do stuff. I'm like, I don't know, I just convince people to do stuff with me, because I also need support too.
It's infectious. It is infectious. And we know that through emotions of any type, whether it be positive or negative emotions, emotions are contagious. And so for anyone out there wanting to get confidence, I mean, I would say number one step is look at who you're surrounding yourself with, right?
Yeah.
And what you're exposing yourself to, and the voices.
Yes.
Before even you would, you can start working on the internal voices, but what are even the external voices saying? The feedback of the group of people you've got around you. Are they kind of questioning you, or are they pushing you and supporting you? So, that kind of, you're the sum of who's around you. But that's what those women, that's what you were for those women.
Yeah, I think there's a story that just stands out for me. I did a keynote in like a small country town in Western Australia. I was flown out there for International Women's Day last year, and I got them all to close their eyes, and we're talking about the inner critic, the inner mean team, inner mean girls, whatever you want to identify them as. And, for me, I've got like Nelly, like negative Nelly, self-loathing Sally, like the list goes on. And this girl closed her eyes and she came to me afterwards, and I said, when you hear that voice in your head that's telling you you're not good enough, that you're not enough, or whatever it is, that remuneration of that negative thought that we have, I said, can you name them? And not, I mean like a name that's a character, but can you name them in your external world? And she came to me afterwards and she goes, it's my mum. And I said, yep, that's probably a lot of people's, or an auntie or a teacher, or even your brother or sister, or, your friends. And they don't mean to say those one things. Like, I'm sure I'm someone's mean girl, in their head from when I was a kid. But then she actually messaged me that afternoon before I flew out, and she said, I had coffee with my mum this morning and I shared this with her, and we had this breakthrough moment, and she didn't realize how critical she was of me from her own, self-critiquing. She was putting that onto her daughter, Liv. And Liv then goes, do you want to just meet at the shopping centre and go in our bra and undies today? And I was like, okay. And so then this small country town, she was like, you've changed my life just from that one thought. Like, so it was that awareness. And then she was like, right, I want to do the bra and undies thing too.
It's like the firewalk.
I know.
It's the firewalk of Heidi Anderson.
That's what I say. Like, that's what I envision. Because when you do it, I don't know, something happens. Like Tony Robbins gets you to walk on fire, right? And then you do it, or you smash the block or whatever. When you get down into your bra and undies, you're so vulnerable. Like, all your shit comes up, everyone else's opinions, your thoughts about yourself, and you have to confront them in that moment. You have to see them, you have to hear them, and you then have a choice after that how you tackle them. And that's how I think, for me, it just is a continuation of like building that confidence.
Well, it's not exposure therapy. It's what we call absolute flooding.
Flooding.
Absolute, just thrown into the deep end flooding. Yeah.
And not everyone's ready for that. And I know that, like not everyone is. And like, it's funny that you said at the start, like, because it's so my mum, she said the same, like, why do you have to get in your bra and undies to build confidence? And I'm like, no. And I say to people, if you want some of our confidence and you don't want to get down into bra and undies, just come, because you'll start to feel that confidence with just being in that energy. I said, or, is it, maybe tomorrow you need to like stand up to your boss and say like, hey, I think I need this pay rise, or, use your voice or whatever it is. The more you start to take that action, like we talked about, that's how you will build that confidence,
And you just mentioned earlier, and I know it's in your book, that there were certain coping strategies that you used through, say, your 20s to
alcohol, boys,
alcohol,
sex,
to
drugs,
mask, right?
Yeah.
Well, quite a few,
everything probably.
And I on this podcast, I interviewed Sarah Rusbatch, who's the author of Beyond Booze.
She's one of my friends, and she was one of my clients as well.
Oh, brilliant!
I was MC at her book launch.
Love her. So she's just come on the podcast, and I love that she said, alcohol is not the problem. Alcohol is a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And it's a very temporary solution, and long-term it's not a solution. It makes things worse. But in that moment, it is the solution. Alcohol isn't the problem. Alcohol's great.
Yeah.
And so
we're currently being sponsored by Liquorland.
Well, for confidence, I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's just that blind inhibition confidence.
But you can have one glass of sparkles and you can feel like, I've got my shit together.
But but it's false, isn't it?
It's false.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I remember I did my first breakfast radio gig, and do you know they gave me a glass of champagne? This was in a little country town in Victoria.
Straight.
They were like, have the bottle, and like, and it was just one of those things that I was like, wow, like I felt so much more calm on air. Obviously, back in the day, the radio stories could tell you. But, I think we do, and we constantly are trying to find something to help us unleash that confidence. And so that's why, like, I still drink, I still have a good time, but I had to have a period away from alcohol that wasn't just when I was pregnant. It was a good, I think, 9-month stint, and I had to find myself because I was relying on it too much, you know, and I had that relationship where I was like, oh, it's like giving me that false confidence, but then it was creating that anxiety monster that would arrive like every Sunday and, you know, and then so by Wednesday I'm like, oh my God, like I need another drink, you know.
And that's why anyone who does work with Sarah Rusbatch or goes through that period of abstinence from whether it be alcohol or whether it be other things you've identified that you're using to give you confidence, it's really confronting because you're just left with you as you are without any ability to mask it and without any kind of false bravado. And you're just looking at you in the mirror. And if you can push through that, you know, as you said, for a good kind of abstinent period off it and come out the other end, you know, that's the only way to do it, unfortunately, is to go through that.
Yeah, it was the same with boys. Like I used boys. I mean, they were using me as well, like, but I used them and I didn't realize it at the time because I would feel like so confident and so happy. And then so we would have sex on the weekends and you know what I mean? Like it was just, and then, you know, maybe a couple of guys on the weekend. And then it was like on the Sunday, Monday, oh my God, like who am I? Like what have I done? Like will they call me? And like there was this desperation. And I feel like this is a conversation that so many young girls today, even boys, like, but so many young girls, they're not equipped like to, you know, they don't have the parent or the role model or someone talking to them about, you know, that isn't how you're going to like you find love and like, you know, within yourself and that's
or define that you're lovable or worthy.
Yes, it's just playing into all those demons. And I wish, like I said, that I could sit down and talk to myself as a teenager and share with that. But then I think, well, would I be the person that I am today if I hadn't have had sex with all those boys and learned all those things about myself now? And there's another part of that I think, you know, a lot of people go, oh, with the whole like, you know, nobody will love you until you love yourself. Like I call such bullshit on that because I definitely didn't love myself. It was, you know, one of those things that I was starting to find myself when I found my husband and he actually gave me through his own actions a way forward in how I can love myself.
I love that actually because that is something that's repeated, isn't it?
All the time. And I'm like, no, actually that is false.
Of course you're still lovable by someone else.
Yes.
You can hate yourself and then someone else can come along and see
and
you.
He saw me like all parts of me, you know, and every part of me and loved everything. Like he's one of those people, you know, that you talk about like you love someone unconditionally. Like that's so hard to do. Your kids, I think you can love unconditionally. Your partner, no, you can't. But him, he loves me unconditionally, like all parts of me. Whereas I'm like, oh, condition over here, condition over there. But yeah, I feel like that's such an important conversation to have, especially like with young women, because for me, it wasn't just the alcohol, it was the boys, it was everything that I was trying to fill this like confidence and, you know, void.
And loving yourself is it's not something you can go, right, well, I'll go to this course and I'll come out the end of it and love myself. Sometimes it's not that concrete. It's not always attainable within a set amount of time. So if you're telling people, well, you need to get this confidence and you need to love yourself before a partner loves you, it's like, oh, well, how long is that going to take?
Well, exactly. You know? And this is the thing, but society, again, those expectations, the things that we drill into everyone, like that's what they made me believe. You know, so I think for the first few years I was waiting for him to leave me. When's he going to leave me? Because I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. I don't love myself. Like all that shit that was, you know, like spewed out on social media at us. Like I did start to be like, when's he going to leave? It's probably only the last few years. And I'm like, okay, he's here to stay.
Yeah, right.
And you know, it's like, because I'm still on the journey myself. I still have days where I doubt myself. I'm still not confident 24/7. There's shit that I question myself, but I think the difference between me and most other people is I'll step into that. Going like, okay, I'm not confident in that, but I'm going to give it a crack.
Okay, yeah. So that was my next question in terms of, you know, you go on this journey, you're recently 40.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Me too this year.
I love that. Am I older than you? Oh, my
just
God.
a couple of months.
Oh, I love that for us, our 40s.
And, you know, you got on that journey, you've gained confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who sees you sees this almost larger than life, vivacious, infectious, confident personality. But are there times where you are not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like just even say, for example, today, you know, like I had a big day yesterday of work stuff. So you put out a lot of energy. So this morning I went for an hour and a half walk to rebuild myself because when I'm tired, guess what arrives? those inner voices get loud, you know? And so it's like, I know the tools for me to work through it. Like, you know, as a mum, that's been one of my biggest challenges. I'm still not a confident mum. I question fucking everything from the moment my son was born, you know? And so I feel like I've nailed the confidence around my body, you know, and that took like 10 years. And so it's a ripple effect going through my whole life in areas, you know, confidence in business and this and that, but I'm not 100% solid, like 5 out of 5 confidence, you know? And I think that's what people probably don't realize.
Yeah.
You know, that just because they see it in one area that they're like, oh, well, they're really confident there and showing up on social media or, you know, their body confidence or whatever. It doesn't mean that I'm everywhere else, you know? Like I said, the mother journey for me, being a mum, like I love being Memphis's mum, like absolutely love it. Like can't believe that he chose me. But it's been really, 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 really hard because I've questioned everything, you know, and I still do.
But that's a whole other area of confidence and something that I talk about a lot, that, you know, in a generation where women get too much information about motherhood, you know, previous generations just did not have access to the mummy blogs and the Facebook groups and the podcasts and know,
their voice, those like they just get you to start questioning yourself, especially like I said, because I was tired and sleep deprived the first few months, obviously. And so that's where I noticed, like for me, and I think that's an awareness thing as well. I know when I'm tired and I've put out a lot of energy that those voices are going to start to arrive and they'll just start to pick apart different areas of my life. So it's me catching that and going like, okay, cool, stop, next, you know, break, whatever I need to do.
So in terms of practicalities for people and people listening to this saying, I want the Kool-Aid that she's drinking. I want to
come to my world.
I want a bit of that. You know, as a psychologist, I love that you've actually done a technique, now whether you knew it was a technique or not, I don't know, that you've externalized those voices, right? You've named them.
Yes.
Right? So it becomes, I mean, we do this with little kids, right? We get them to call their worries the worry monster.
Yeah.
And you can name it whatever you want and it can have 3 arms and, you know, a million legs and goggly eyes and we get to draw and kids come up with this thing. And then it's kind of this external thing that lives with me and the worry monster can get bigger and stronger. And how does it get, you know, if we feed it or it can get smaller and weaker. But I'm not sure if it ever goes away.
I don't believe it does.
Yeah, and I don't tell kids that that's the aim when I'm working on kids who are maybe anxious, and then I kind of tell them that, you know, the worry monster's just always going to be there, and we can kind of tune into it or not tune into it.
Yeah.
But it's always there. Is that how you feel about these voices?
Well, and I get women to like also write it on their bodies as well, like words. Like we do like in my workshops and stuff, we get down into our brown undies and do like a war of words. And on
Are you guys ever clothed? Ever?
Well, right now I am. Sorry about that. But it's like, again, because it's like mean girls on the back and then your words of wisdom and, you know, your power words on the front. And so that's kind of like how I see it. The words are always going to be there, but if you can put them to the back and remember that, and then at the front, that's where like the power comes from our heart and all that kind of stuff. So when I wrote my book and I came up with these names, and I'd been watching Inside Out.
Oh,
you know,
I love
the TV
that movie.
show. Yeah, no, there's going to be a number 2.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
I think that's great for kids, that movie.
Well, and so, but you know how like they identify like all the different emotions and everything. And I was like, well, and I didn't know that I was doing it at the time, but I'm like, that's all the voices. And like self-loathing Sally arrived when like the boy said this for the first time that I had a kiss, and he said, oh, I kissed the fat one. And, you know, and then she got louder and grew and all that kind of stuff. And so I find psychology really interesting and human behavior. And I think I've just been obsessed with finding out why I'm this way, you know? So I do things and then I'm like, oh, that works for me. I'm like, I would love to share that. And, you know, but as I say to anyone, it's not always going to work for you, and to just try and be as open as you can, like to try anything. Because I know for me, when I was in my darkest days of the anxiety monster was fucking huge, and I couldn't get out of the bath, couldn't get out of the shower some days for work. I was having panic attacks in the middle of a radio show, and then coming back in with a tear running down my face being like, ha, 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 ha. Like, you know, it was hectic. But for me, in those dark days, oh, now I forgot my train of thought. Don't you hate that? That's like the anxiety, like, oh, like where was I? What was my point?
Worry
monster.
Monster and living with it.
Yeah,
living
shit.
with
Now,
it.
see, I can't remember. And see, this is real too. Like, it happens to me. I lose my train of thought sometimes because I got all these other things that I want to say to you. But I can't remember why. I think you asked me a question about, and I was going to get.
But
to that.
you have externalized it, which I think is a really great way to start.
Oh yeah, I was talking about being open and like being open to everything. And I think for me, in my darkest days, that's what I needed. Like, I needed to step outside my comfort zone and find other things. And so that's how I live my whole life now. I'll try it once, and if it works, awesome. And so that's what I try and teach people now. I think that was my point.
All right, let's narrow this down to finish off. If people are listening right now, have you got 3? I know you've got a million tips, but like 3 things that people listening to this right now, what can they do today? Is it a matter of, for example, go and find out what you don't know, go start Googling, and getting on social media and looking up some confident people to follow or, what are 3 practical things today that someone can go and do if they say, I want to be more like her?
Yes, buy my book, obviously, Drunk on Confidence. No, I think it's, for me, it was the very first thing was starting to listen to podcasts, read books, like opening my mind and realizing, okay, no one's here to save me. There's no magic pill that I can get from the doctor for the confidence. So what is it? What is your next step? And then, so I would go find a book or a podcast or someone to follow on social media. And then the next thing I think is just pure awareness. Like, just really start to, I always say to people, like, can you write down how many times today that you were mean to yourself? Like, when I start working with, some of the girls, I'm like, just jot down on your phone, like just a one, like how you tally it all up. And just so that you can start to see, because once you start to realize, that's when you can start to pick it up on yourself. Like, oh, okay, I was really mean like 20 times in the last hour. So yeah, I would say
It's amazing, isn't it, what we live with? Because imagine if you, I say to people, imagine if your girlfriend came to you and said, my husband's at home and calling me names 20 times an hour says this, you'd say, well, that's abuse. You need to leave.
Yeah. And same with your kids.
You would not put up with an external person treating you the way you treat yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's mind-blowing when we look at it that way and you go, and yet we're living in that mind 24/7 and we've got 80, 90, 100 years of it hopefully. So it's, if anyone else was doing that to you, you would call it out. It would be bullying. It would be abuse. It would be not tolerated. And yet because it's you to yourself, it's not seen in the same light. And when you bring light on that, people go, God, this is what I'm living with.
Yeah, this is like, and so that's what I would say. So book or podcast or someone to follow on social media, then, the tally it up. And then I think the biggest thing I always say is shed your shit. Like say to someone, message me on Instagram, message Claire, like just have that moment of like, I didn't realize how awful I am to myself. And that's the start. I feel like shedding your shit, being vulnerable and open, because I feel like so many of us are walking around with all those masks. Like no one knew I had all those thoughts going on in my head, right? Until I've announced it. And then it was like this breakthrough moment for me. And so I feel like send a message to your partner or your best friend and say like, hey, I was listening to this podcast and this girl just said this will help me, because I feel like then that's the start. You've broken the kind of the shame and, all that kind of stuff.
Just broken that wall down, haven't you? And until you do that, you can't then start to rebuild how you want it to be or discover who your genuine self is.
And it's a journey. Like, don't you reckon? Like, it's such a big journey.
It is. I hate that word, but it is.
Oh, do you know what? It's so funny. I used to hate that word as well, and I've probably used it recently, and I'm like, oh, my God, I've become my mom, because she's like, life's a journey. But it is true. It is a journey.
It is. It is. And then there's a certain amount of, when I'm working with young people, there's a certain amount of confidence that has to come through life experience, messing up, and maturity and age.
And I have to remember that for my son, because I'm like, otherwise I'm like, don't do anything.
No, he has to.
He can't have sex. He can't take drugs. He can't do anything.
No, it's part of the journey. That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you won't get to the other end and go, oh crap.
I know. Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like if you meet most people that have, that write a book or want to share a big story or start a podcast or whatever, it's because they've been through it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they've got to the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Heidi Anderson, thank you so much.
I feel so privileged.
People
I
are
love
going
what
to
you do.
just get so much out of this and relate and just see you as someone very normal that is a better version sometimes of where they're at right now and go, that's what I want. And it's achievable.
Yes.
And like I say to people all the time, I love the saying, you are under no obligation to be who you used to be. It's very possible to change. And I think you're an example. People will see it and grab it and, love it.
Yeah,
so
I'm not
you.
special. That's what I always say. Like that, do you know what I mean? Like people go, oh, and I'm like, no, I'm not special. I've just done the work, took the action.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving up your valuable time and joining me today on the couch. If today's conversation spoke to you, consider sharing the love and send it to someone you know who needs to hear it. Don't forget you can watch this full episode on my YouTube channel. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, all I ask is that you hit that subscribe button. It helps us to be able to deliver bigger and better content to you absolutely free of charge. If you've got comments or questions about today's episode, head on over and come hang out on Instagram where you can follow and contact me. Okay, stay curious, stay connected, and join me next time on the couch. Take care. Okay, for those who've made it this far, just remember, even though I am actually a registered and qualified psychologist, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional individual advice.